Hey guys, welcome to Orphan Kegger. It's Rob. Time for another rant. Today, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to do George Romero Part 2, where I talk about how I don't like most of the remakes for the movies that have come out and how annoying it really is that Hollywood can't think of a genuine idea themselves and just have to recycle the best ideas that have ever happened. Anyway, guys, check it out. Welcome back. So, pardon me while I chew some Tic Tacs. I use the thing at Tic Tacs to prop the phone up because the mount doesn't stick in the winter because it's too cold. Anyway, so I want to talk about the fact that George Romero is probably, to this day, one of the greatest horror movie directors of our time. Just, it's hard to find people that come close. He pretty much invented the ghoul zombie movement, the slow moving, lethargic zombie movement. He really had a lot of some cool input. So Night of the Living Dead was good. We talked about Night of the Living Dead in the last one. I think we talked a little bit about Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead as well, but I want to get a little bit more into it. So when he was doing Dawn of the Dead, he recruited someone who had been in a couple horror films before that, but ended up being the right man for the job. He had fresh back from Vietnam. He brought in Tom Savini, who, if you guys know, he's the one that essentially helped K&B effects become like an actual like thing. So like Nicotero and stuff like that. Like Nicotero was his like protege. So he's he's helped him go. He tried to do a little bit more of a cartoony kind of a feel with Dawn of the Dead, and I think it worked out well. Everybody's just kind of grayish blue, and they've got this really like obnoxious bright red blood. It's just it's a fun it's just a fun movie. It's a fun, the way that the makeup effects are done. It's just very, very fun, and George wanted it to be kind of campy. That was his deal. That's what he was looking for, is a campy horror film when it comes to like more comic booky, like the way that it's set up. But so that's Dawn of the Dead. That's the kind of backstory a little bit to that. When he wrote it, he wanted it to be he was thinking more on the comic book side of things. And then he wrote Day of the Dead. Day of the Dead script was actually quite a bit larger. There was a whole village up top of the cave system that they were in, the little storage cave system that they were in. There's supposed to be like shit that happens in like the Everglades with alligators. There was an alligator in the first one, but or in the original, the film itself. But he wanted it to be a little darker. So what he did was he asked Tom Savini to kind of dig in a little bit more in the reality of death, and it essentially was Tom Savini pulling pictures up of things that he'd photographed in Vietnam and trying to make them a reality. So there's a lot of very true to form decay and very true to form bits of damage to bodies. Like, we're talking, some of the wounds are impeccably realistic, and he really did what he could to make it a real horror style film. So he did a very good job. Tom Savini is to this day my favorite makeup artist. And it's funny because Greg Nicotero actually had a chance to put good makeup on Tom Savini in From Dusk Till Dawn, which is obviously not, it's not a Romero film, so we may have to talk about that later. But the premise of Day of the Dead was, so the world is pretty much done. Like, there's only one small group of survivors, and it's supposed to take place in Florida, but it takes place between Pennsylvania and Florida. So in Pennsylvania is where the underground stuff takes place, and in Florida is where all the sunny shit happens. So it follows one woman and a group of military men, and then a pilot and a guy that's essentially like a communications expert, and then a few doctors. So what they ended up doing, which is fun, is they kind of developed like a really cool like lab area for the doctors, where they do like the main doctor, they call him Dr. Frankenstein, does some really cool experiments. And one of the really cool things is he has a zombie named Bub, who is capable of learning again. And it's almost to the point where it's like, maybe we can coexist with these, which is kind of funny, because that's kind of a George Romero like nod there, where he's just like, yeah, I think we can live with creatures and this and that. So it's pretty fun. There's a lot of sorry, I'm just trying to get past this semi who didn't let this guy over, of course. Why would you let somebody over? Why would you help them in any way as a semi driver? Anyway, so Bub is is one of the central characters that some of this stuff revolves around, and he's played by Howard Sherman, which is a phenomenal actor, really well done. He only says, I think, maybe 2 words, and that's Dr. Frankenstein has him say on a telephone, "Hello, Aunt Alicia," and I think he actually gets the word Alicia out. But it's a very powerful moment, and it's done really well. The whole movie is done very well. It's visually stunning, the whole film. So that's the real fun part with it, is that the whole film is just, it's dreary and dark, but you can see everything that's happening. The only thing I wish they would have done is, in the very beginning, they had Dr. Tongue, it's one of the very first zombies that you see. He turns his head, he's missing part of his lower jaw, and his tongue falls out. They didn't light it properly, because it was the second, so they were in Florida when they did this, and it was the secondary crew. It wasn't the primary crew, and it was at the very end of the shoot for the day, and everybody wanted to get the hell out of there and go to Disneyland or Disney World. So they quickly powered through it, and that's what we get. But there's a lot of beautiful things in that film. Romero also did a handful of other really awesome movies. A movie called Night Riders, which is one of my personal favorites, which is, I'll just give you the kind of the gist of it. It's about motorcycle gangs who dress as knights. They're armored, they fight with swords and jousting sticks and shit like that. It's pretty great. Monkey Shines, which is a play on this guy is an invalid and he has a monkey that helps him. Turns out the monkey's evil. Pretty cool. I think he did a movie called, if I'm not mistaken, it's called Bruiser, and it's about this guy that this is one of his later films. This is a guy that is just a very meek guy, very meek human being. Doesn't really have a lot of backbone, and one day he just snaps, but he wakes up, and his face is a white blank canvas, and throughout everything that happens, he gets his revenge on certain people and that have wronged him, and he grows a backbone and everything else, and eventually his face starts to fill in with colors and stuff like that. It's a cool movie, visually appealing as well. So Romero did the Creepshow movies as well, based off of the Stephen King short novellas, and Tom Savini did the makeup for them. So if you want to talk about just some badass shorts, the first one is my favorite, without a doubt. The one with the Indian chief is my favorite out of all of the stories. And no, that's the second one, isn't it? Yeah, the second one had the Indian chief and the blob and what was the other thing? Oh, the lady that hit the guy and in the car and stuff like. Anyway, so the first one is my favorite one, because in that one, there's the last one is about bugs, and it's very well done, the way that they kind of bring everything out. I really enjoyed that particular part of the movies. But there's a lot of really good things in those. Leslie Nielsen was in part of it. Stephen King himself was in the first one. It has to do with a meteorite and a mossy fungus that grows, and it's cool. It's cool. So we're gonna have to do a part 3, because I've been ranting for a little while about this. I will say that I don't like the remake of Dawn of the Dead too much, and I really don't like the Day of the Dead movies that they did. Those were just awful. They were really bad, and they're not even worth their time. I'm trying to remember who was in them. I think Ving Rhames was in the first Day of the Dead remake thing very shortly. He played a character that dies, gets his legs ripped off, becomes a zombie. Pretty cool. I think Nick Cannon was in that one as well, which wasn't great. And Mia Severo, or whatever her name is, the chick from American Beauty, the one that Kevin Spacey essentially has a somewhat of a fascination with, and she's infatuated with him, kind of a thing. So that's, anyway, let's save the next one, where we go into a little bit more depth on what real parts of the Romero legacy that really show in some other films that are out there. The way that they've tried to make certain films, and it's helped grow that particular badassery, if you will, of George's legacy. So until I was going to say till next time, but first I want to say, like, subscribe, hit that little bell at the bottom, follow us on Instagram, on Facebook. If you really like us, guys, or even if you don't really like us and you just want to help us out, go to our Patreon. Please just just think about it. As little as $1 a month would be very helpful. We don't really make any money off of this. We all hold full-time jobs, of course. So it would be nice to have the ability to kind of keep it going, between beer reviews, cigar reviews, being able to do some of the fun editing that we'd like to do. You know, eventually we'd like to get a computer for not for everyone, but as a central editing process. It would be nice to have a decent working computer. We have older computers, so it's a little harder. Dom's the only one that actually has something that's even remotely really able to edit. Me and Tanner use our phones, but Dom uses a MacBook that he got from his fiance. So, oh, that's there we go. Yeah, let's get a little of that. There we go. Okay. So thanks again, guys. Comment down below if you want to talk about George Romero, some of your fondest memories of some of his movies. Thanks a lot for listening. I know that I'm just rambling now, but I love you guys. We love you guys, and by all means, cheers.